Welcome, everybody. I am Magdalena and my beloved partner here, Emmanuel, whom you'll hear from very soon. Just wanted to welcome you guys, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. This is actually the third in a series of webinars that we've been openly sharing our story about our shamanic journey, as well as shadow work and light work, and how you can really truly go within to remember who you truly are and to be able to really through this ascension process of the planet, whatever you want to call it, age of Aquarius, some people call it the 5D ascension. There's so many different labels out there. And even if you don't know any of that stuff, you just know that there's a lot of energy coming up that's forcing our hand truly to heal at the deepest level possible. And so that's what we're really all about. And what I'd like to do, since I know for most of us here, it's the end of your day. If our friend from India comes back, it's like really early there in the beginning of their day. But I'd like you to get grounded. Again, just go ahead, put your feet firmly planted on the floor and just kind of let go of the day. Let go of any cares, any worries. Go ahead, and I'm just going to invite you to take a few belly breaths in. Inhaling belly deep and expanding, as well as your chest like an ocean wave. Just connecting with your breath. And as you inhale, inhaling love and light. And as you exhale through your nose, at least for this first few, I want you to imagine like a smoke, a shadowy smoke is coming out on the exhale. So you're inhaling light, you're exhaling shadow. You're inhaling love and white light and beautiful energy. And on the exhale, you're letting go of the day, the cares, the worries, the frustrations, any arguments, any negative feelings, thoughts, emotions that may have entered into your body and mind and spirit today. And then on my command, we're going to collectively breathe together, a deep inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. So go ahead and start. Inhale now through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the top. Suspending the breath suspends the mind. Sip in a little more air through the mouth like a straw. And then just exhale out as loudly as you can. Just letting go of the day. And just tune in with your body right now, noticing how you feel. And before you open your eyes, if you have them closed, I just invite you to set an intention for this next hour together. What are you here to learn? What are you here to discover, self-discover? Energy flows where intention goes. So just really opening your mind for a few more seconds. What is your intention for being here in this class? Continuing to breathe normally. And let's just take one more deep inhale. Inhale one more time. And on the exhale, sigh it out or just breathe it out. Exhale, open your eyes. Welcome, Heather. I see you. And go ahead and drop in the chat if you don't mind. Drop in the chat. What is one word or maybe a sentence? What are you hoping to gain from your time here today? Anything in particular that you would like to glean or be receiving from this energy exchange of being here? Feel free to type in the chat. Clarity, beautiful. Thank you, Katie. Clarity is such a good word for the new year, right? Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Belinda. I see you. Thanks. Okay, cool. Well, grab your notebooks, buckle up. We're going to get started here and just wanted to tune in, So this is our shamanic lightworker program that we're also going to be sharing about with you later. We want you to take copious notes. There will be Q&A at the end. And really quickly, most of you, I know all of you here, there's a couple people who signed up that didn't really know us. My husband and I, we are healers full-time now, focusing on helping light workers, other healers, to really shine their light, to really go through their own shamanic initiation, their own kind of dark night of the soul journey, and then transmuting that into more light, more love, more peace, more joy, more gifts, developing your spiritual gifts. Because I know we have quite a few people here who want to develop their spiritual gifts. And me and my husband, we kind of have a joke. I'm a big fan of the shadow work. He's a big fan of the light. And I'm white and he's black. So we're like the perfect bridge. And we've been through it. And we are continuing to be going through this path as we continue, as this ascension process is never ending, as we birth a new planet, right? So I love this quote: we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And yet that human experience can really be challenging, can it? And a lot of what we'll talk about today is a lot of the shadow work. We will have my husband talk about the light work, so we are going to cover both topics. But Carl Jung is the world-renowned shadow work expert, the Jungian theory, philosophies, and he said, my favorite quote: "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." And I feel, if you're feeling the feels, if you've been crying more, if you've been more frustrated, or if you've been triggered, or, maybe you have had more moments of bliss, we have discovered that the more shadow work we have, the more light, more love, more bliss that we are feeling, because the planet is ascending and changing and forcing our hand. But it doesn't have to be so hard. Of course, I like to share how I started to figure it out, to be like, okay, enough already, universe. I can't handle anymore. I guess you got my attention. And I found shadow work because of my own dark night of the soul, my own doorway into the shamanic initiation. My husband will share his story later. So I had 12 friends that committed suicide between 2006 and 2022. I lost both my parents, my brother between 2018, my stepmother, all of them died, essentially by this past year. I had lost myself for several years, 8 years, in binge drinking, workaholism. I had a lot of abandonment grief, a lot of numbing behaviors, because I didn't know what shadow work was. I just wanted to ignore it, not feel at all costs. I was also an outcast in my family, or at least I felt like that for most of my life, but it really hit harder when the pandemic hit. And then I lost my parents, my brother, and just really felt like, I don't know why I'm here. What's the point? I didn't feel a sense of community. I had a lot of isolation and aloneness, even though I had like 5,000 Facebook friends, right? I was very uncertain in my marriage. We had become very codependent. Again, he'll share his story. I felt like a worthless mom. So I had a deep mom wound, which I didn't know at the time was part of shadow work. I had shut down myself completely spiritually, which is also a shadow, deep religion wound from this lifetime, but also past lives and ancestral, I discovered through my shadow work journey. I felt lost in my career, not fulfilled as a sales coach, and had been coming from a very masculine space. And I know some of you women, especially that are watching this, have talked about that, being in a corporate America, or having to grow a penis, or feel like you have to be so doing and masculine dominant in this kind of like this 3D world that we've been, especially in this Piscean age, been living with, right? So when the pandemic hit and we were forced to homeschool and we were like stuck in our space, I couldn't run from it anymore. I couldn't hide from it anymore. Because what I had been resisting for so long, because I had my first spiritual awakening, shamanic initiation in 2007. So really, I had been fighting this for almost 15 years. And so for things to change, I got to confront my shadow. And Carl Jung, another great quote is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it your fate." So that's another way of saying what you resist persists, and focusing on the shadow is going to really, really help you be the best and highest version of yourself. And my husband and I are living proof of that today. So really quickly, I love my husband's definition. I'm going to share a definition as well, as what we mean by this shamanic initiation, because there's a little bit of confusion. So we want to define these things before we go too far. So Emmanuel, do you want to take it away? Maybe give a couple of your own personal examples of shadow work and what's happened for you lately.
Absolutely. Thanks, Magdalena. Thank you for a beautiful introduction into this and sharing, such intimate elements of your journey. And I was there as your husband, so I witnessed a lot of it, and I know how difficult it was. And I'm so proud of you for being able to, be out in the open and holding your ground and doing what you do. And I want to be part of it. So that being said, I needed to give her a little kudos. She's awesome. Okay. Every so often you got to do that for your partner. It's important, okay? Anyway, so shadow work is such an incredibly challenging thing, and I ran into shadow work. Well, I would say over the past 3 years, right? So Madeleine and myself, we've been going through a lot of spiritual awakening, transformation, healing, and a lot of stumbling in the dark, trying to find our way to our true selves. It was a painful journey, and during my own version of that, I had been blasted from all corners of my life from so many things. And it really started around the pandemic that were kind of putting me completely out of my comfort zone and having to deal with paranormal phenomenon and being able to feel people's pains, emotions, and not just living people, also those who had passed away, was a pretty intense experience for me. So that kind of triggered me to go deeper into really understanding what the heck is going on with me, what the heck is going on with the world. And shadow work happened to be one of the things that is incredibly important to actually find answers to those questions. So one of the most helpful way I was able to finally get a hold of the importance and the usefulness of shadow work was through I had this spiritual experience um, with myself and my higher self, where I was in this, contemplative state, meditative state, you want whatever word you can use to describe being in some altered state of consciousness, not like my normal being, but like being in a very different space within myself. And I have these beautiful guys. I call them guys. You can think of them as like higher self. It could be guardian angels. They could be archangels. They could be deities. It doesn't matter what you call them. We each have guides. So my guides wanted me to really understand shadow work, and they said, "Okay, this is how we're gonna explain it to you. Imagine that you are standing on some kind of top hill in the middle of the day, beautiful sunny day, blue skies. You're standing on top of the hill in some beautiful, natural setting. It's South there, like we're here in Southern California in San Diego County. So we have plenty of examples of that. And then the guys are telling me, how far can you see? If you look around you in these particular in this particular setting, look around. How far can you see? I thought, oh wow, yeah, that's easy. I've done it before. I've climbed a few hills and mountains around here. When you get to the top, you can see all the other mountains. You can see the cities in the distance. You can even see the ocean, and even some of the islands off the coast, the Pacific coast here in Southern California. So yeah, during the day you can see pretty far. The guide say, okay, that's a good start. Now imagine that you're at night, pitch black night, no full moon, just the darkest night you can think of, but also beautiful sky, no clouds, but just no moonlight. Just it's a new moon. There's no moonlight to be seen, and it's completely dark around you. How far can you see? And I was like, oh, that's tough. I mean, with no lights, you cannot see anywhere. You cannot really see far. And then my guy said, think again. If you look up, what can you see? And then I had this moment of clarity where I'm thinking about looking up in a beautiful, open sky at night with no moonlight. I'm like, oh my God, that's when you can see all the stars. That's where you can see the different constellations. That's where you can see the nebulas and some of the distant galaxies that are pretty big that you can actually see if you have a good eyesight. And you can see all this reality that normally is not perceptible to you during daytime because the sunlight covers it all. And the guides say, haha, now do you understand the meaning of shadow work? And for me, it was this moment of clarity. The word clarity was used earlier. I had a moment of clarity where I realized that, oh my God, you need the shadow time, you need the night time to be able to see the things that are true, those things that are part of life that are hidden. And when you look inside yourself, it's a very, very similar picture right there. There are things inside me that were hidden so deep, that were either created through traumatic experiences or very difficult emotional stress at different points in my life, throughout my life, from childhood all the way to where I'm at now. I'm middle aged, almost a middle aged man. I think I'm a middle aged man. Yeah, I'm not a senior yet, but I'm not too far from it. So many decades of challenges. And that's the nature of life. Life brings challenges, and those things are hidden so deep that you really need to go into the dark. You need to go into the shadow to discover what are those things that are buried. What are those little things that I'm trying not to see, or I'm trying to ignore, or I'm trying to forget? They're still there. It doesn't matter how much you want to forget that they are stars. The stars are still there, even if you can see them, right? So those things are not going away until you notice them. They want to be seen, they want to be recognized, they want to be acknowledged, they want to be embraced. And these are some of those parts of our lives that we're not so proud of. You know, as I said, all those emotions that are not present, things like shame, guilt, abandonment, resentment, anger, that we try to bury. Also, our society kind of is not necessarily the best teacher on how to manage these kinds of emotions. So we have a tendency to hide them. So being in the shadow gives us an opportunity to actually let those things shine and catch our attention. And being in the dark is the best place for that to happen. So that's kind of the meaning of shadow work. Magdalena?
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll just add things that you guys can write this down too, if it's helpful to, think about it as this way. If you close your eyes, you don't have to, but I'm just saying as an example, if you close your eyes, you picture yourself as that little girl, since we have all women here, picture yourself as that little carefree, boisterous girl. And I don't know about you, but I was definitely shut down a lot as a little girl, being the youngest of four, growing up, especially in a very, fairly religious home, having to be the good girl. So slowly, every time I got shut down or not heard, not seen, that was the beginning of the forming of the shadow. I believe the shadow is our gift. It is our greatest teacher. It's what we came in this life to learn, to heal, to feel, to name. We're going to talk about naming your shadow and the importance of that, and how you can truly transcend that aspect of us that is blocked. Because over time we block it, and yet 90% of our lives, our external world, and all of the triggers and all of the things, is coming from that unconscious, that dark, that shadow. So if right now, and maybe I'll throw it out there to you can put it in the chat, is there an area of your life right now that you're not happy and satisfied with? And it's optional, but if you want to type in the chat, is it health? Is it finances? Is it relationships? Career, however you want to name that. Maybe you're in a full-time job, but you want to go and use your gifts to make great money, right? So feel free to type in the chat, just optional, but I'd like to acknowledge family relationships. Okay, thank you, Katie. Finances and career. Hey, Kim joined us. Welcome, Kim. I just want to acknowledge you. Excellent. We're just sharing if we know what areas of our life right now that are challenging us and asking us to grow. I shared all of mine earlier. I was depressed, overweight, binge drinking, workaholic, hated my career, even though I was making 20 to 40K months, right? All of that is what I'm saying. And so guess what? That didn't just happen overnight, right? Wherever you go, there you are. We even moved from Minnesota to California thinking, oh, all of a sudden everything's going to come up smelling roses, right? But what we needed to do is understand that all of our personal traumas, all of our belief systems, societal norms that accumulated over our lives and then past lives and ancestral, which is also a lot of what we're going to do inside of our program, they can manifest in so many different ways. Also, every day, we're either on course or we're off course, and we can have things like white lies that we tell, our struggles, moments of self-doubt, so we don't go and pursue the true career of our dreams. I was living that. trust issues. I had a lot of trust issues in my marriage, emotional roller coasters and up and down and up and down. You know, I sort of became cynical about life. Paranoia. I had some paranoia. There was times I wanted to die. All of that is your shadow trying to get your attention. At this point in time, we want to help you do that in a safe way and actually make friends with your shadow, because the shadow isn't only negative. It's actually there, also hiding suppressed passions. I've got back into music. I'm taking ukulele lessons now. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Maybe you have leadership abilities as part of your spiritual gifts, or maybe you are hiding your repressed spiritual gifts, light worker gifts. My husband's going to talk about how he can help you with that. So it's not about battling an old enemy. It's about embracing back the shadow and embracing it, making it our friend into our daily lives. And how do you transmute that and turn it into the light? So that's really what we want to talk about. So when you look at these areas, and I'm going to pull up my screen again. So if you're able to look at this screen, I have some things I'm going to want you to like write down when you look at these areas. Maybe even think about today. How many times were you triggered or annoyed or got emotional? Just think about that for a second. Then I'm going to show you something on the screen. And I want you to, I'm not going to show it yet. I want to make sure all your eyeballs are on the screen. Okay. This is a little test. This is a test, only a test. I want you to look at the next slide. And the first three things you see that draw your eye, I want you to write them down. Again, the first three words or things you see, I want you to write them down. Okay, here we go. I'm going to make it bigger. First three things and go. Hopefully you can see it okay with your Zoom. Go ahead and write down the first three that drew your attention. And keep in mind, this isn't like I'm not diagnosing you and saying that these are accurate or the gospel according to Magdalena. But if you want to, write in the chat. These are trauma responses based on shadow work, again, repressed memories, all of the things that are holding us back from having what we call that neutrality. You know, one person could be born from an alcoholic and not be an alcoholic, and then their twin brother is an alcoholic, right? So we're trying to like bridge that neutral gap so that you're not triggered. You're not going to have like emotional responses. We want to get you to the light, and that's going to take some work. So if there's, and I can tell you, I autobiographically, I'm still on this page myself. I still have a tendency to let my boundaries be stepped upon, and then I get angry. Now I know when I get angry, boom, something is, I'm not clear in my boundaries, right? If I get overwhelmed, it's because I've probably allowed my old people-pleasing shadow to come up, and now boom, instead of spending years undoing that, now I can take minutes to undo that and right the ship. So I hope that makes sense. So again, save your questions, but you can start putting them in the Q&A feature. Feel free to type in the chat if you want to share. These are parts of your shadow that we want to help you make friends with. Now, the other thing that we learned, and most of you know the work we do, but I'll just remind you, we are plant medicine people. We also serve combo. And part of our shamanic 8-week program does include a weekend retreat where we're going to be doing not everything, but most everything on this slide right now. You've got to get out of your body, and there's different ways to do it. I know physically is our favorite, with somatic, with shaking, with trauma release. That can be also done with exercise and breath work. Kundalini yoga is one of my favorite ones, or regular yoga, however, whatever floats your boat. Ayahuasca and psilocybin, we are going to be talking about that, and as part of our program, Combo Frog Medicine. Of course, purging usually is also throwing up and pooping, right? Crying. All of that comes out. That's been stuck and wound in your central nervous system, possibly since in utero. You also carry stuff from your ancestors in your DNA. They say 7 generations back, one of the certifications I have, but I'm here to tell you, I've gone all the way back to like the beginning of time. I've had ancient contracts with my ancestors be purged, okay, with the help of my beloved, who's a shaman, and he's going to help you do that as well, to be able to really get to the root causes, ancestral roots, many, many lifetimes roots. It's in your cells, it's in your DNA. If it doesn't get purged, whether it's again through one of these things, or there's other options out there, of course, but the body keeps the score and it can control your mind. The mind, if unless it understands it, and you don't have to always know what it is, because you can just purge it through tears and all of that kind of stuff, then you can open yourself up to more light. All the work that we do and what we've learned is we want to align your head brain, your gut brain, and your heart brain. And we have a lot of that is inside of our program as well. But you know, it's got to be more than just proper nutrition and supplements. I'm here to tell you, it's got to be more than pharmaceuticals. I've had 12 friends commit suicide. At least 11 of them, or 10 of them rather, were on some kind of antidepressant or anxiety medication, right? And that's a Band-Aid. That doesn't help with the purge and the shadow work. And so it impacts your heart brain. My heart had a brick wall around it. My gut was really compromised due to stress, sugar, and of course, a lot of childhood trauma, etc. Your chakras are also part of, this is part of what we teach and work with both the plant medicine, the Kundalini yoga, the breath work, and the combo frog medicine. Your chakras are spiritual energy centers. Apparently I typed spiritual wrong, but forgive the typo. Energy blocks are also impacted by shadow. You know, again, if 90% of what you see in the world is coming from your unconscious mind, or the what we call the shadow, then you know there's probably something going on in your energy centers. And we have more than 7, but I'm just focusing on the 7. And what my husband was talking about earlier, examples of the words, you know, I didn't understand. I had fear, guilt, and shame driving about 90% of my decisions every day, right? And if you have 120,000 thoughts a day and 80% of them are or more are the same as you had yesterday, how are you going to change that? I'm going to here to tell you, affirmations and a bunch of books aren't going to do it. I did that for a couple decades. So you got to come back into alignment. And most people, it's not ironic that me and my husband are in our 40s. He's in his 50s now. Most of you came in with all your chakras. I'm getting obsessed with chakras as of late, and it's all part of your spine, which is, you know, your foundation, your root. Even though you're born with all 7 of them, most of your root stuff happened between 0 and 7. And some people argue on these ages, but don't overthink it. And that's oftentimes your root chakra is blocked a lot by fear. So if you have fear every day, it's coming from the root. The sacral is guilt, solar plexus is shame, heart is grief, throat is lies or mistruths. I developed an autoimmune disease when I was 31, but it had really been developing ever since I was in utero. And of course, past lives, being burned at the stake, a whole host of shadow that I worked through over the past 2 years that we want to help you with. Third eye illusions and the crown chakra attachment is what blocks that. And so if you have any of these shadow emotions that are listed on this page, we can help you with that and help you open up and cleanse and clear your chakras, even on a daily basis. And then of course, most of you know my story, but a lot of my fear abandonment wounds came from when I was in utero with my mom, who was a schizophrenic, and literally the day I was born, you know, I was taken from her arms, and I got to work through most of that. Not all, because I'm still here, I'm still alive, I'm still breathing, I'm still human. And that was a huge part of what was my shadow that I had to work through in order to be the happiest, healthiest version of myself, a healer and a light worker now full time, who can actually make, you know, 5 figures a month, where I was also terrified of that, by the way. I thought I was going to get burned again at the stake if I made money being a spiritual teacher and healer. Look what happened to Jesus. Like, that's not a good way to go, but I guess you know, he was trying to make a statement there. But we want you guys to live your best life, and it's got to start with the shadow. Part of what we're also going to teach you through our program is how to create a self-care nourishing practice daily as you heal your shadow work. It's your daily habits. more than anything that define your success in life and in especially in our program. We're going to help provide you with daily tools and support as well as spiritual light practice inside of that program to help you heal and feel and then transmute and into what my beloved is going to help you with. So ultimately, and this is, I'm teeing you up, Emmanuel, if you want to give light to others, first you have to glow yourself. And part of that, it rhymes with know thyself, that great Greek quote, know thyself. But if you want to give light to others, you have to glow and know yourself. I'm going to throw that in there. And as part of this journey that we've been on, my husband and I, oh my gosh, the healing that's come as a result of the shadow work and then the light work on top of that. The light teaches us humanity and love and compassion, and then shining a light on that shadow specifically, and then learning to embrace your darkness teaches us empowerment and strength. And we want your shadow to be strong, and we want you to love it and to embrace it, so that you can be the best light that you can be. So take it away, Emmanuel. I'm gonna let you take over from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Magdalena. So it's almost like a conundrum, right? When you think about what Magdalena just said and what we both are saying, is that the shadow and the light are like two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other, and it seems to almost a contradiction, but it is not. It is not a contradiction. It's actually a very powerful synergy of states that each one of us is meant to embody and experience on a daily basis. So the shadow is all of some of the connotations of it seem to be so difficult, so challenging. As Magdalena says, it's there to teach us to become stronger. It's there to teach us to reclaim our power. Um, and it is when you have accumulated enough of that strength, enough of that power through the shadow work, that you can actually have the consistency, the stability to receive the light, which is given actually freely. I really want to insist on this one. The light is given to you freely by the divine. It's your divine right to be a creature of light with all of the powers, all of the gifts and abilities that are yours to have. It's a free gift from the divine. The only problem for you to be able to hold on to those gifts, you got to embrace the shadow. You see, if there were any kind of a price or a cost to becoming a fully empowered light worker, that's it. It's the cost is your shadow work, because it's within the shadow work that you are going to learn some of the most important qualities to become a light worker. One of them is called forgiveness. The other one, compassion. And the biggest one is love. Through your shadow work, those three fundamental attributes of the divine are going to be reclaimed. You're going to reclaim them. And you're going to start with yourself. You're going to learn to forgive yourself for whatever things you've done in the past and in past lives. It's not just this life here. We do believe that we have many lifetimes that we are still carrying some what we call karma, like some kind of shadow that we've been carrying through lifetimes. You're gonna have to forgive yourself for all that. You're gonna have to embrace that and show yourself compassion. You're gonna have to be compassionate with yourself. And then you're going to have to learn to love yourself fully, not in a when I become this, I'm going to love myself now. It's like right here, right now, you will be able to love yourself. That's the power of the shadow work. The shadow work helps you build these elements within yourself of forgiveness, compassion, love. Without these three things, and there are a few others, but these are like the three fundamental ones. The light that's gonna come into you are gonna bounce right back. You're gonna be like a mirror. It's not gonna come through you and then reside completely within you and then radiate back, to the world. That's the work. That's the normal process when you've done the right amount of shadow work, and shadow work never ends. You keep doing it until you die. Okay, it's not a final state and say I've done all the shadow work, now I can be all light. No, until you die, you're gonna still do shadow work, and you're gonna still be able to shine your light. The light comes freely from the divine into you. You receive it, and then you broadcast. You shine it back. When the shadow work is not done properly, the light doesn't get into you. It just bounces on you. It wants to, but it's blocked. You cannot find the channels. You cannot find the receptors. And this is so true. There are receptors in your constitution, in your being, beyond just the physical. Physical also has some incredible senses. Think about this. All your senses are receptors: sight, smell, taste, sound, touch, balance. All of these are receptors. The light can come into all of these receptors, but then you have your energy being. You have this aura around you that also can receive divine light, can receive divine energy, cosmic energy, and then through that, completely change you from within, completely change you from within. But then, again, as I said, for that process to take place, the shadow work needs to. And it's when you fully embrace your shadow and you learn in that process to be self compassionate, self forgiving, and self loving, you know, when you've done those three, at least the minimum, those three things, it's when the truth of who you are can now be ignited through the light coming into you and then shining back out with all the truth, all the qualities, all the beauty. Let's use that word. All the beauty that you are will come out of you in a very natural way because it's your true nature. I'm not kidding. Our true nature is to be precisely those beacons of light. But it's also because our true nature cannot be enabled without the shadow work. Because the shadow work is also part of our true nature. We have to embrace the shadow for the light to shine through us. Um, I'm going to give a very simple example of how that happens almost automatically when you do things in the way that is truly in full alignment with the way your body or your being it was designed to operate. Not long ago, a little bit more than a month ago, I had a session, a shadow work session, right, with a therapist, and it was a 90-minute session. And um, at the beginning of our session, had this shoulder pain, which had been plaguing me for the past 3 days. I've shared that story in the previous webcast and podcast, but I want to say it again because these are things you can't make up. When it happens because you need to know it, and I have to share it because I think it's so profound. So I have a shoulder pain. I woke up one morning, I was my shoulder pain. I remember I was getting myself ready to work on some very deep traumatic things that happened to me at a very young age, before I was 10. And this is very difficult because that's early childhood. Some of those chakras Magdalena was talking about, they happen before 10. And you could get all of the shadows that are attached to them if some of the traumas happened to you during that time. So I was dealing with something that was so difficult even with all the light that I can already handle, I still had some work to do, and I still do have work to do even now as I speak. So it was that day I was going to work with a therapist that I found that's really good at helping with early childhood traumas and other kinds of traumas. I have this shoulder pain, and the 3 days that led me to that meeting with with that therapist were terrible. I couldn't move. I could barely put my clothes on. I could barely shower. I could barely put my shoes on because my right shoulder, was completely unoperational and completely painful. It was like I couldn't do any rotations with it. It was just killing me. So I told the therapist, yeah, since the last time we spoke, I got this crazy thing that happened to me. My shoulder is killing me. And my therapist says, huh, okay, well, let's just go on with what we had initially scheduled to talk about, do some of that shadow work. And she took me through what she does and what the thing she's teaching me on how to process shadow work and process trauma in a way that is very gentle, but also incredibly powerful, as you're going to see in a few seconds. She took me through the whole thing for about 90 minutes. Profound work. I had tears at times. I had laughter and joy at times. I had fear at times. All those emotions were coming up and they needed to come up. And she was coaching me, welcoming the emotions and giving them a place within my being so that those emotions don't feel that they have to plague me to get my attention, because she wanted me to give my attention to them. Anger came, I gave anger attention. Fear came, I gave fear attention. Some of the other emotions were also some of the positive ones. There was emotions that were related to safety and pride, or accomplishment. And I said, oh yeah, give them all of those emotions. So we played with this family of emotions for 90 minutes. And at the end of the session, it was a beautiful session, as I said, ups and down emotionally, but beautifully orchestrated, because that's the kind of work she does, and she's teaching me a little bit along the way how to do that. At the end of the 90 minutes, she says, oh, I realized we didn't talk about your shoulder pain. How's your shoulder? She's asking. And I go, oh yeah, that damn shoulder. And I'm like, well, it's not hurting me anymore. And it can move completely in all directions with no pain. And I looked at her and I was like, how the hell did that happen? And she just looked at me and she laughed. She's like, well, maybe we've done something that took care of it. And I realized, again, another one of those clarity moments, right? And I had an example right there that I was living and experiencing within my being and my body and everything else that I went through in that session. I was able to heal a physical pain, impediment, um, restriction by working on my shadow. And as soon as I had done enough of the work is not complete. There will be more, right? But whatever I had to do in that 90 minutes seems to be what was needed for that shoulder pain to miraculously go away, as if it was never there. And I held my head like this, and I was like, oh my God, that's the power of the shadow work. The more you do it, the more your body reclaims its sovereignty, its ability to heal itself, its ability to shine, to be balanced, to be powerful again, right? All that, it's already inside. I didn't have to take a pill. I didn't have to get a massage or anything like that. That happened through doing the shadow work. So I'm not saying that any physical pain is going to go away because you got to do your shadow work. What I'm saying is that there are some physical manifestations in your body that are completely related to traumatic and stressful situations in your current life or past lives. Completely related. And until you do the work that allows for those things to go through their cycle, the shadow work is a cycle. Until you get cycles to happen, there's a whole bunch of them that have to happen. Until you go through the ones that are connected to a particular manifestation in your body and get them resolved, the manifestation in the body is never gonna go away. And I have this example with my shoulder, and it was a beautiful experience. And I wanted you guys to hear about it. Magdalena, back to you.
Well, let's share like one little example. I'll let you think about it for a minute. I'm putting you on the spot, but for myself, another story with shadow and then how it converted into light for me is I was very unhappy as a sales coach because it wasn't my calling. It wasn't, it was beautiful money, beautiful people that I got to work with, but it was killing me inside, to make really, really good money, but it wasn't my calling. And I started working with plant medicine, did a lot of work, a lot of deep dive, a lot of getting into the chakras and the truth, reclaiming my power. And multiple times I found, in past lives, I was killed for being a healer. I was burned at the stake. I was choked, right? I developed an autoimmune disease in my throat, right? All of these diseases and depression, leaning heavily on my addictions because I wasn't living my truth and reclaiming my magic from all time and all places. And I know some of you, that's your desire. So that's why I'm sharing this story. really, we didn't have any organized, structured program like we're offering you guys, but I piecemealed it. And finally, last year, I came out of the spiritual broom closet, healed what I called the witch wound. Again, when I say healed, I don't mean like it's completely gone. It's just I saw the shadow, I understood it, I embraced it, I loved it. Like you said, I made it my friend. And then I said, "You're not going to stop me." And being able to move forward with faith as opposed to fear, to be able to shine my light. I had to feel that, I had to name it, and then I had to bless and release it and transmute it. So then to be able to come and completely change my career in less than 2 years, to go out and pursue it with passion and excitement and desire, that sacral chakra, by the way, all of these things I had to get into alignment. And thankfully now I'm on the other side of being an example of what's possible when you really embrace the shadow and going into the light. Now my husband's a shaman, which he wasn't that 2 years ago. Do you want to share a quick story on how the shadow work then embraced your career and your truth and your spiritual gifts?
Yeah, this is a good one to talk about, absolutely, because one of the interesting thing about myself, I go by Emmanuel now. Before I was Emmanuel, I had a different name. Some of you know me for my my previous name. It's all good. And I was completely involved in a line of work which has nothing to do with spirituality. I went to school for engineering and science. I was trained, heavily trained. I had two master's degrees in engineering. I started my PhD. I started being published even before I was done with the PhD. And then the government started calling me because they needed my skill set. And I dropped the PhD to do work for the government because they needed people with my skill set. And that's been my career. That unfolded from that. So I had embraced this model, right, of success that is very Western in nature, right? Where you got to go, work hard, play a hard thing, and make the big money, get the big projects, get your name out there, get the recognition out there. It's a very, very, very a present kind of influence from the culture, in Western culture and in the United States in particular. There is a sense of achievement that's connected also to some more like materialistic kind of criteria of achievements. The money that you make, the house that you have, the car that you drive, the clothes that you wear, the watch or whatever gadgets that you have. I had embraced that from a very early on in my adult life, and I lived that for several decades. Really, as I was doing that, there was a part of me that was seriously not fulfilled. Um, what I had adopted, I discovered a little bit later, was the safe way or the safe path for me to go through the environment that I was in the middle of, because that's the model that was presented to me to say you want to be successful, especially if you're a black man, better be even more careful. But these are things, if you do right, you're gonna be able to be successful and not have all the problems and pains and whatever things that some of the minorities are facing with. And I was like, oh my God, okay, so if I do that, wow, I'm not gonna be harassed as much or discriminated against as much or all those things. Because there's a lot of fear that was guiding many of the decisions that I've made, many of the activities that I had throughout my life. And there was a part of me that was still not fully recognized, appreciated, that had nothing to do with those very, Western values of materialistic success. And that was the connection to my African origin and the tribes that I come from. Because within those cultures back in West Africa, especially some of the wisdom of the tribes that I know I'm connected and I come from, this materialistic pursuit of happiness is not the model. What we value is there are two things: connection to nature, Mother Earth, is everything that Mother Earth offers, the animals, the plants, the minerals, all the elements, and connection to the community. These are the two stronghold values that somehow I had abandoned at some point in my in my evolution. And it was out of fear of, as Magdalena says, of retribution, of persecution, you know, um, did that. And when it was time for me to realize that, I got hit really hard, like a slap in the face, by my beloved ancestors. Those ancestors who had kept those traditions that I just told you about, that West African traditions, for generations and generations, going back thousands of years, all the way to Egypt. They were telling me, wake up, son. You are missing a good chunk of the picture. You are not being true to yourself. You're not being true to the light that's truly within you. You're living somebody else's life. You are living according to somebody else's model. There is something more profound within you that you haven't paid attention to. And the way they got to me was almost scary. It's a form of shadow work that I hope most of you would not have to experience, but it could be. It was really through putting me into environments where some of my channels that I was telling you about, those things, those receptors, got triggered by things that our scientific mind cannot explain according to the current level of science and engineering that I had been trained. And even people who are pretty advanced still wouldn't be able to explain some of the phenomena that I found myself in the middle of. I had to be, as I said, slapped in the face and says, there is more to what you think you know. There is so much more. And it's time for me, it was time for me to open my eyes to those realities. And it was so difficult in the beginning. And the 2020 was a year where I thought I was going to die for real. And Magdalena had the same fear because she had lost her. We had both lost our fathers before the pandemic. But then when the pandemic hit, she lost her brother and her mother on top of that. And it was very possible that she could have lost me too, her husband. And I felt the taste of death on a few occasions because I was so disconnected from my truth. And my truth wanted to get my attention so badly that it says, if I have to take you to the doorsteps of death for you to wake up and understand that you need to pay attention to what has to change within you, I'm going to do that. And that's exactly what happened. I was taken to the doorsteps of death. I even had some NDEs, near death experiences, so that it would be so clear to me that there is more to the life that I'm supposed to live than what I had lived until that moment. So there could be more. I could say more about that, but I know time is of the essence, so I'll just stop on this one and let Magdalena take it over.
Yeah, and I used to say we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, but now I'm going to say we've seen the good, the bad, and the shadowy. So that's why we wanted to bring this program to light. And I realize for sake of time, because I know it's already, look at that, it's 5:55, at least here in California. We wanted to talk about our program, give you the information. I know we have already 3 people here who are signed up, and we want to be able to answer questions about that. So I acknowledge we will be going over, but our goal is to help you safely in a structured program. The reason he almost died so many times in the past 2 years going through the shadow work is because we didn't know what we didn't know. And especially if you're working with plant medicine or any kind of intense, deep work, it can be dangerous. And so we provided what we feel is going to be the best way to support you and guide you and then help you develop those spiritual gifts as well safely. So I love this quote. Ultimately, I had to show this. One of the recurring core truths we witnessed about the human psyche is that those who face the darkest parts of their life with courage, loving, and acceptance and surrender, which is what he talked about, always experience a massive blossoming in their life after. So type in the chat, who here is ready to experience a massive blossoming in your life in 2024? Type in the chat. I want to hear from you. Who wants to experience a massive blossoming in your life in 2024? Maybe have your best year ever in this experience on planet Earth. I do believe we all came here to chose to be here at this time to help rebirth the Earth, this new Earth, again, Age of Aquarius, 5D Ascension, whatever you call it. So first you got to confront the dragon and get the gold. And that's what we mean by shamanic initiation. I actually skipped, I said earlier I was going to give you that definition, but what I wanted to do is give it to you now, just before I share. We're not trying to make you become shamans, okay? Even though my husband is a shaman and it's his lineage, it is his legitimate calling. We want you to go through the shamanic path, which is the shadow work, and then coming out on the other side. The basic idea of ancient shamanic initiations was to break down all the former notions of self. So that's little self, the ego, essentially, that we have inside of us, inside of that shadow. So oftentimes the tribes would have brutal tests of physical strength and psychic ability, and to have every emotional button pushed hard. Again, this is why you don't do shadow work on your own, and even developing your spiritual gifts on your own can be dangerous, and why we put this stuff all together. So we're not going to do this to you, but the tribes would taunt and spit on the initiate to test him or her to endure the duress with humility and fortitude. The final initiation step was to be buried in the earth for one day and to be reborn without the former ego in the morning. So we're not going to do any of that. Good news. But that's how we felt trying to do this on our own. And we were like, we can't have people, go through what we've gone through. So I'm trying to pull up my website here so I can show you. The program starts this month. It's an 8-week program and it is a beta. We're transparent. This is the first time we've ever done this, but we're calling it the 8-week to embark on a shamanic journey of self-discovery. So kicking off the year with our support, being able to help you shine your light, convert that shadow into, your friend, and be able to develop your gifts safely. So the total price, if you can read this here again, I'll drop this in the chat, is $19.97 as of today. There was a discount if you signed up by December 31st. Right now, we do require a down payment of $1,000, and there is a 2-payment plan option. The first payment is due on or before January 21st. If you're not local and you need to fly in, I would say do it sooner rather than later, because we have everything already scheduled and planned. And we call this a level 1 because, all the work is not going to be done in 8 weeks. Spoiler alert. It took us 2 years with piecemealing all of it. And our goal is to help you if you choose, again, if this calls to you, of course, it's got to be a calling, to actually have level 1, level 2, level 3, all in 1 year is our hope and our goal. We want to help you develop those intuition, spiritual gifts with shamanic guided training for you guys. And whether you call yourself a light worker or a healer, don't worry about those words. That's not important. We'll talk to you about that individually on a free consultation, but there's 2 weeks of preparation. We're starting, essentially today's the 9th, right? So, 2 weeks from this Thursday, I believe it's like the 25th. It's a full moon. Oh, by the way, we're going to start the virtual preparation. The weekend is going to be February 9th, 10th, and 11th, which is included in the 8 weeks. It's a deep dive plant medicine ceremony. It's ayahuasca, and it's going to be a full 48-hour weekend at our home here in our retreat center in the Lotus Throne in San Diego. Also, this can be optional, but we really, really, really can't emphasize it enough. Combo frog medicine was a huge part of my healing path, as well as my husband's. And in some ways, I feel it did more than the plant medicine itself. That's why we're offering it up. And you can choose to not partake. We'll talk about that. There's other medical reasons that maybe you may not be able to partake because it's more intense than plant medicine. But we'll talk about that. It's included whether you do it or not. That doesn't change the price. We'll also, for those who want to, give you microdosing as part of your daily practice that we're going to set you up with. You're going to be set up with a daily practice, like I said earlier, of how to be embodied with the microdosing, whether it's ayahuasca or psilocybin. We can talk about that separately. But it's also optional because we always want to honor you are your own sovereign being. It's part of what we teach you to be. So it's not a one size fits all. My shadow work path and my husband's were different. Oh, by the way. So you guys are part of our initial offering. So we want you to tell us what works and what doesn't work, but that is included. That by itself is, like $500. So you can see we're underpriced here in this beta offering with everything that we're offering so far. We also have online tools to help you transmute the shadow every day, 24/7 on demand. That's included throughout the whole 8 weeks. There's also a prep week call with the group. It's a small group. We're going to cap it at 8. We're at 3 right now, so there's room to jump on in. So one prep week call with the group, and then 5 calls throughout the whole 8 weeks is group, helping you with your shadow work and developing your gifts, your magic. You'll also have one-on-one calls with me and Emmanuel. I forgot to mention that before the plant medicine ceremony, and then one-on-one calls after, because everybody's going to have a unique experience with that. There's going to be weekly homework as well. So it's not something that you would just sign up for like a workshop and say, yeah, I'll do my best. We really want you to be committed, not sign up for like 2 other things. Like this is the thing that you're committed to transforming your life in 2024. But again, we can talk about what you have going on in your life and if you have enough space for this. And then of course, once you graduate, then you'd be able to go on to the next level where we can go even deeper. We're not going to talk about what that looks like today. And of course, because of my passion for your body and your mind and your gut brain, we are also offering up superfood nutrition and cellular detox to help cleanse as the shadow and the free radicals and the work with the combo and the plant medicine comes up. You're going to have stuff that needs to be like daily supported with nourishing you. And again, some of you may already be on different products and things. We're going to honor and talk about that on a case by case basis. So this is our first offering, guys. We will open it up for Q&A. This is the only time, like once in a lifetime, not trying to invoke your FOMO. That's a trauma response, FOMO, fear of missing out. We don't do that, even though I was in sales for a long time. But for real, you are going to be early adopters, and the next time we do this, which we don't know when that'll be, maybe spring, maybe summer, it'll be $4,000 or more, because we're given so much value for so much less in this one, because we want to reward you for taking action and for being a part of this initial offering. Does anybody have any questions about anything we shared? You can put it in the Q&A feature, preferably. If you know what the Q&A feature is. Anybody have any questions? I know it's getting late. Some of you are on the East Coast. And those of you who are already signed up for the program, we have an after meeting, and I'll name you in a second as well. We're either going to stay on this Zoom, or I might send you a personal one just to make it a little bit easier. And make sure that the things you wrote down from the trauma responses, we're going to do a shadow work exercise inside of that session. So just give you guys a heads up to make sure you save that. What are the times for the online meetings? Great questions. Shanna, it's all up to you guys. Part of why we want you to sign up sooner rather than later is because we want to help the group determine the times. It could be evenings because most of you are working daytime. You know, we have West Coast already signed up. We have Central Standard Time, Midwest already signed up. So a little bit of that is going to depend, but I'm thinking probably after work, but we'll talk about it as a group, and we'll of course record everything and make sure you get access to all of those recordings. Back to the chakra slide. Where would you say disappointment is? Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to say heart. Because heart also, I didn't go through all of it. This is going to be ongoing conversations, right? But if you even close your eyes for a second, Belinda, and just like imagine yourself disappointed, figure out where you feel it in your body, because most chakras are in alignment with those vital organs. I definitely right now just saying the word, I feel it in my chest, but that's where I probably held disappointment. Because I consider it disappointment being like abandonment, going along with grief, and also anger. Um, if you're disappointed, where do you go? Is there sadness? Is there anger? There's always something underneath that. And that's part of the work that we're going to be doing on those group weekly calls. Absolutely. Because then we want you to really tune in. Like, for example, if your heart chakra is coming up a lot during the training, like I had all of them throughout my past 2 years, but then we'd really encourage you to really focus on that color, green, to really wear the green, eat green foods, all of that kind of stuff, and really just transmute that disappointment emotion through your daily practice. And you'll get signs, because I don't think there's any one right answer. Full disclosure, I feel like everybody, literally everybody on this call might feel it somewhere else, and then we want to personalize it to you, because I don't think there's one size fits all. I hope that helped. Do you have a calendar of all the events? Amy, we're going to talk about that on the after party for those of you who already signed up. The weekly group, same time, same channel is my preference. Same day of the week, same time. And we're going to do the best that we can to pick a time that works for everyone. I already said the weekend is February 9th through 11th. So, oh, by the way, you got to have that cleared. You can't miss any part of it. So by de facto, if that weekend is out for you, you can't do the program. And then we'll have private conversations. If you're local, you might be able to do combo at a different time. All of that kind of stuff is yet to be revealed, but the events and the dates, we'll get the group calls, the one-on-one calls. That's easy. That's whatever is best for you and us and our calendars. The group call, we should have nailed down, hopefully, by the 25th, because that's the official kickoff, January 25th. And when I say kickoff, it's not like we're going to have a kickoff call. It's a virtual kickoff, but we want you to have booked your one-on-one calls, and we'll book the group call based on the poll of the best days and times to do that for you guys. And here's the thing, I'm just maybe going to sound a little, I don't know, extra motherly, or I don't know, personal trainer Magdalena's coming out. This is like so important. Like if you have to miss something for a few weeks to come to our group weekly call, I would do that. I would do that because we spent multiple 5 figures on getting to where we are now. Our goal is to save you time and money. So you want to double down and be all in and commit, be in it to win it. That's my last advice on that. But we'll get all that written out. We can send you calendar invites to all of that kind of stuff. Any other questions before we drop off? Thanks, Kim. You're welcome. She already took off. Any other questions? And you can always reach out to us. I'll drop that link for those of you who aren't already signed up. I'm dropping the link. I hope it works in the chat right now, or shoot me an email. Yes. Okay, click on that link. There's a booking consultation. If you scroll down halfway through, it says book via calendar. Oops, I just saw, I gotta block off that time because that's not gonna work. I have to block something off on Thursday. And if you don't see a time that's available for you, let me know. Just shoot me an email. Email is the best way to reach me if you have questions about booking that time. Any other questions? I'm actually going to block off my calendar a little bit better. And you can actually meet with me or my husband. So if you're really most excited about the light work, you might end up meeting with him. If you're more excited about the shadow work, you can also meet with both of us. We'll do our best to accommodate. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time, especially those of you who are live. Same for the replay. Maybe if you come up with questions after this, shoot me an email at support@microdosingforhealth.com. I'll type that in the chat. And then for those of you, Amy, Heather, Belinda, if those of you who, I'm going to try this first. I'm going to actually stop the recording. So